Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and begin. If you missed the prompt at the top of the chat box, as you settle into today's webinar, please take a moment to introduce yourself by letting us know your name, the organization or district that you're with, and geographically where you're joining us from today. Thank you to everyone who has chimed in so far. It's really wonderful to see how many of you are joining us today and from really all the very different places that you're joining us from. It's really, really wonderful to see that geographic diversity, and we're excited to be all together today for this opportunity. To get started today, hello, and thank you again for joining us. My name is Kelly, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to this webinar on behalf of the No Kid Hungry team. This webinar is part of our 2026 Summer Meals webinar series. The webinar is titled Savor the Summer, Designing Menus with Community Flavor. And the webinar is going to explore strategies for engaging your community in a variety of ways to build winning summer menus. You'll learn about creative procurement methods, including successful partnerships with local farmers, grocers, and community members to develop culturally appropriate and high quality meals. We have our colleague Kathleen helping us behind the scenes. Kathleen, would you move us to the next slide, please? There are some helpful things to know before we begin today. First, the always very popular question. The slide deck will be shared via email after the webinar along with the recording. So if you are listening to this right now live, that means that you are a registrant and an attendee, and you are going to get an email that will include both the slide deck and the webinar recording, along with some additional resources. Throughout the webinar, if you would like to engage with other attendees, please use the chat box. If you have questions for the speakers, please enter those into the Q&A box, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. We are going to have an opportunity for Q&A near the end of the webinar. However, you do not have to hold your questions until then. So as you are hearing from our speakers throughout the webinar, at any point, if you have a question, go ahead and drop that into our Q&A box. And when it is that time of the webinar, our team will go ahead and take a look at those and move those forward for answers. And then also at the bottom of your screen, you should have the option to turn on closed captioning for the webinar. Those are the kind of helpful hints to get us started. Again, if you have questions about any of that, or if you encounter any trouble of any kind, please go ahead and use the chat box, and one of the members of our team will help you out. Next slide, please. As for our agenda today, we are going to finish out introductions. I'm joined today by two of my No Kid Hungry teammates, and we are joined by two fantastic guest speakers. After that, we're going to do a quick review of some data surrounding rural communities, and then we're going to hear from our two guest speakers, and then we'll finish out with questions and answers before closing out the webinar. With that, I'm going to move on to introducing my two teammates that are joining us today. Next slide, please. My first teammate that I'm going to introduce is Anastasia. Anastasia manages our No Kid Hungry campaigns in Georgia, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Her work centers on expanding summer meals access to children in rural areas through grant opportunities, critical partnerships, and program education. And my next teammate that I'm going to introduce is Tiffany. Tiffany manages our No Kid Hungry campaign in Louisiana and provides technical assistance to partners in the school breakfast program and rural non-congregate summer meals through partner collaboration, site visits, and grant funding. I'm now going to pass this over to Tiffany, who's going to introduce our speakers and offer some more context about today's webinar.
So thank you, Kelly. Welcome, everyone. Just a quick overview of what our summer nutrition consisted of this year. It was held in Washington, D.C. in January, and it provided attendees with a plethora of information on non-congregate summer programs in rural areas from meal planning to home delivery. And it was also a great opportunity for networking with so many partners from food banks to folks in school nutrition and so much more. We also heard from mayors, SNAP partners, and parents, and we had so many great sessions that our Center for Best Practices team created a webinar series to expound more on this information shared from a few of those summit sessions. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today's webinar. So first we have Allie Thornton, the programs manager for Gallatin Valley Food Bank in Bozeman, Montana, and Avery Monakea, the executive director for Kahumana Organic Farm and Hub in Waianae, Hawaii. Next slide, please. So first up, we will have Allie Thornton. Allie is the programs manager for the Gallatin Valley Food Bank, and it's a program of Human Resource Development Council 9 of Montana, where she oversees senior groceries, summer lunch, kids pack, produce, RX, food box deliveries, all nutrition education classes, and the customer-facing aspects of the food bank. She focuses her work on the intersection of local food, community, and emergency assistance. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Agroecology and a Master of Science in Sustainable Food Systems from Montana State University and has a background in farm to school, research, education, program development, and nonprofit management. She has lived and worked in Bozeman, Montana since 2013. And today, Allie will present on tips and tricks to expose children to new food to support participation rates and boost nutrition diversity in youth in our community. And now I'd like to pass it over to Allie.
Hi, everyone. You can switch to the next slide, please. Tiffany, thank you so much for that introduction. As she mentioned, I'm Allie. I'm the programs manager for the Gallatin Valley Food Bank, which is a program of HRDC 9 here in Montana. And just to give a little bit of context for HRDC, it is a community action agency, which means that our mission is to dismantle the root causes of poverty in our community. And one of the ways we do that is through our summer feeding program, our summer lunch program. And before I get too far into the details, I do just want to give a quick shout out to Lori and Lyra. I see you guys are here. Some great Montana representation here. But to give an overview of our summer lunch program, last year we operated 5 sites all across the city of Bozeman. All were rural, open, non-congregate sites. We did not do any registration at any of our sites. We operated 5 days a week, and we served scratch cooked, ready to eat breakfast and lunch provided together at each site. And then we also did weekend distribution at our food bank of pre-packed, shelf-stable bulk distribution boxes. And this allowed us to, one, serve children over the weekend, and then also gave us some additional reimbursement as well. Last year, we served 24,000 meals in 11 weeks. So we are a good mid-sized operation, which averaged to about 488 meals a day, and about 244 children per day. And we've been operating summer lunch since 2014. I think we've done every single operation model for summer lunch and have been really grateful to be operating rural non-congregate since, I believe, 2020. Next slide, please. We have some pretty unique elements of our programming. We do all in-house cooking in our commercial kitchen. We're very fortunate to have a full commercial kitchen on site with a full kitchen staff, which helps support our summer lunch programs. And then we also have a 20,000 square foot warehouse where we are able to store food, including cold storage as well. Because we operate a whole suite of food programs and childhood nutrition programs, during this, at the end of the school year, we can run our inventory into our summer lunch program, and then vice versa for summer lunch can roll extra inventory into our other childhood nutrition programs that operate during the school year. And then one of our sites is privately funded by a foundation, which I'll get into the details of that here in a little bit. However, while we have all of these great opportunities in our programming, we also have some very unique challenges Bozeman is a rural, very expensive community that is losing area eligibility very fast. And this is part of the reason why one of our sites is privately funded. Also in 2026, we lost all of our rural eligibility for the city of Bozeman. So our 2026 summer lunch programming is going to look very different than what our 2025 programming did last year. To give some context of how expensive it is to live here, our median household income is $85,000, which was from the last census, which is a lot of money. That's nothing to sneeze at. However, the current median cost of a home is upwards of $800,000, and that is down 2% from last year. So poverty looks very different in our community. Many of our families that live and work here do not qualify for any other benefit programs like SNAP or WIC, and so heavily rely on our programming, which is completely no barrier, anybody can access. And just to give some historical context, in 2019, the median cost of a home was $460,000. And when I moved to Bozeman in 2013, it was $300,000. So we have seen a massive, massive spike in the cost of living here very quickly, and our community is just grappling with those changes. And then, as I've mentioned, in 2026, the city of Bozeman lost rural status. So all of our rural non-congregate sites that we operated last year are grandfathered in until 2030. And then we'll have to be operating closed congregate sites in the city of Bozeman. However, our county is still considered rural. Next slide. So just to give a snapshot of what that looks like, on the left, you can see our current rural eligibility map as of 2026. Up until last year, all of Bozeman was considered rural, meaning anywhere that was green on the map, we could operate as long as it matched with the green on the right from our open eligibility map, which is the map on the right. So in 2026, this has completely changed. We have until 2030 to continue operating sites that we already have been as rural non-congregate, but at the same time, we'll need to be drastically changing our operations to host congregate sites. And we're considering heavily leaning on our privately funded site, which I'll get to, I believe, at the next slide, as a way to still operate a rural non-congregate model within the city limits of Bozeman. Next slide. And I just wanted to point out in our open eligibility area, you see this big green area. And while that looks like we have a lot of eligibility, that is actually the Bridger Mountain Range and the foothills surrounding it. So there are no schools or heavily populated areas in that area. It's extremely unrealistic to operate sites in that entire green space. And then next slide. And I just want to point out that these maps are the exact opposite of each other, which is going to make our 26 operations super unique and fun and challenging. Next slide. So in response to our challenges, we partnered with the Bozeman Library, specifically the Bozeman Library Foundation. The library was a rural or eligible site up until 2019, and then it lost its area eligibility, but we were able to run it as rural non-congregate until 2033. In 2024, we did not have any site at the library, and we not only saw a huge dip in our participation in summer lunch, but the library also saw a huge dip in children accessing the library during the summer months. So we came together, realized that we were stronger when we partnered together, and the Library Foundation has committed to privately funding a summer lunch site at the library, basically in perpetuity, which is really wonderful. We have an MOU between both of our organizations. The foundation reimburses us at the same amount as the Office of Public Instruction, who operates the summer lunch at the state level here in Montana. For each meal served to a child. We send the exact same invoice that we do to OPI to our library foundation, and we calculate the exact same reimbursement for them. So it operates identical as our summer lunch sites, which takes administrative burden away from us and then also makes it very easy for us to plan fundraising for operating that site. The children's librarians also act as backup food distributors for us. They are all trained and do our summer lunch training as well. And it's also the perfect site for additional partnerships. And it's also our best site for conducting additional research and surveys of participants, and then for hosting concurrent activities from other nonprofits, summer camps, other partner organizations in our community. Next slide, please. As Tiffany mentioned, I come from the farm to school world, and it brings a really helpful lens in adapting new menu items for our summer lunch program. And as I was reflecting on this webinar, I really came to this conclusion that menus dictate your summer lunch program distribution model, and your distribution model also impacts your menu. And so the two kind of go hand in hand. Because we make all of our food in-house, we have the opportunity to play up with we've had a really great opportunity to play with our menu over the years and have worked really hard to create a diverse menu. Our average age of children eating at our summer lunch sites is 6 years old, and that's really important to know because this dictates what we're doing for our menu. Hold on, my light just turned off real quick. There we go. And it has helped us make adaptations to our menu that are better received by our participants. And when we're thinking about developing menus, it's important to think that we're supporting lifelong nutrition. So we're offering a wider range of nutrients to students. We're trying to reduce dependence on processed foods. That's why the vast majority of our meals are scratch cooked. And we really want to foster curious eaters. So most students start to develop their food habits as young as 5 or 6. And so we really want to foster curious eaters, brave eaters, eaters who are willing to try new things and implement nutritious foods in ways that they can into their diet. We're also trying to introduce kids to new foods in low pressure environments. So we're not operating in school cafeterias where there might be a lot of students, it might be loud, overstimulating. Kids want to be hanging out with their friends rather than eating. We are serving food in public areas where children feel really comfortable, and hopefully we're helping them gain confidence in making decisions about their food, and then that openness to try new foods broadly. And then with our menu, we are introducing diverse flavors and culturally appropriate foods as well. And something I always like to remind people is that it can take 7 tries before a child enjoys a new food. So it's okay if a menu item doesn't land immediately because it can take multiple exposures before a child becomes comfortable with a new food item. Next slide. This is our menu. It is a mix of a 2-week rotating menu for our lunch program specifically. And I want to highlight 2 specific lunch items. One is our peanut noodles served on Wednesday of week 1. This is a huge fan favorite, and it's introducing kids to tofu, and it also includes peas and carrots. And then our second summer lunch menu item that I want to highlight is our Three Sisters taco salad, which is Friday of week 2. And this recipe has been adapted multiple times over the years and has landed in a really excellent space. It's served with Fritos to kind of make it easier to eat and add in a menu item that's maybe more familiar to kids. And also with this menu item, it not only has, meets all the nutrition requirements, but also provides an opportunity to learn about the history and culture of the Three Sisters planting system in our community. In the state of Montana, we have the right to Indian education for all in our public school systems. And we wanted to tie that into this menu item because the average age of our students is 6 years old. Learning about the Three Sisters is something that they might be introduced to in first grade. And so we wanted to tie that piece in. And then, as I mentioned, this menu is years in the making. It's had multiple iterations for each of these menu items, ranging from us making the jelly for our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from scratch to hummus cups versus hummus wraps. And we've had everyone from registered dietitians, chefs, volunteers, participants, staff summer camp instructors from the community all give us feedback to help us create new iterations of this menu that kiddos are going to want to eat. Next slide, please. Feedback is something that is very critical when it comes to creating new menu items and getting children to try new foods. At the end of every summer, we survey our volunteers, specifically those volunteers that were at sites acting as site supervisors, to get a to get a sense from them about which meals were popular and which meals were not. We've done multiple surveys with kiddos of the thumbs up, thumbs down, tried it, liked it, loved it. It's a pretty popular model in the farm to school world. And then this year in 2026, we're also considering attaching a paper QR code to our summer lunch sacks so that families can take those home and scan the QR code and give us feedback about that menu item as well. And then again, I would highly encourage asking the age of your summer lunch participants because this can really help you nail down what you want to be serving in your menu. Next slide, please. So bringing this all together, I'm going to use our Three Sisters taco salad as an example. As I said, this menu item has really changed over the years. Previously, it had been a 3-bean salad. And the feedback was that it was not a favorite. I do believe a word that a kid used to describe it once was slimy. Like our hope was to introduce a vegetable protein, but we weren't really landing with the menu item that we were doing. And so our goal going into the summer of 2025 was to highlight a culturally relevant food that had tied into the Indian Ed for All, while also meeting all of the nutritional requirements for the program. And so we sat down as a staff. We brought in chefs from our commercial kitchen, volunteers as well, and came together to create the Three Sisters taco salad. And this took many meetings going over R&D of the recipe, making it, having people, staff members, volunteers try it, and then actually rolling it out. And the feedback we got last summer was that it was one of the most well-loved menu items that we had, which was super exciting. Next slide. Because we operate within a food bank, it makes our procurement a little bit different than maybe other summer lunch models that don't have that food bank aspect to it. We do order from Cisco twice a week just because of the volume at which we're ordering at. We can't always pull inventory from our food bank. But when we can, we do heavily rely on donated foods coming into the food bank. When summer is in season, we get a lot of donated produce. We're also purchasing produce from local farms and local distributors. And so we try to pull that into our summer lunch menu as much as possible. For our oh no moments, I don't really call them oh no moments in the moment, but we also run to Costco and our other area grocery stores just to help supplement that. And one of the challenges in Montana is that we don't have very large distribution channels. So we do have to be realistic about what we can purchase in our given geographic area and environmental constraints. Our growing season here is very short. So the local food we're able to purchase may not be as robust in other more temperate or tropical climates, and that definitely impacts our menu as well. We're also one of the largest institutional buyers in the area of Southwest Montana. And so finding businesses, grocery stores, local food producers and distributors can be challenging to meet our scale of what we need. But we are continuously working to improve our procurement model, and our procurement model going into summer of 2026, I'm actually really excited about. We're hoping to more strongly lean into our local food system here in some pretty cool but realistic ways. And next slide. And then just some tips and tricks from what we've learned throughout the years is that it's okay to play with our menu. I would encourage everyone to always be continuously playing with it. Pre-2020, our menu was all hot food items. We were also operating as congregate sites. And then post 2020, we were rural non-congregate, and now our menu is a mix of hot and cold items. So again, leaning into your distribution model and how you want to develop a menu, and then also having your menu help your distribution model. I'm doing all hot items, rural non-congregate would be challenging for us, so we don't. We only do hot meals once a week. And then also introducing items slowly. It can take multiple iterations before you find success in new food items. So don't be alarmed if something takes a minute before children really like to start to eat it and like it. And if you have any questions or want recipes, our email there is at the bottom. It's summerlunch@thehrdc.org. And we're always happy to chat about anything and everything related to summer lunch, outside of Montana, inside of Montana. And yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Allie. We'll hold questions to the end. Next slide, please. Awesome. I'm so excited to introduce Avery Mauna Kea as our next speaker. Avery serves as the executive director of Kahumana, a nonprofit organization deeply rooted in Waianae, Hawaii. As a native Hawaiian and alumna of the Kamehameha schools, she brings a profound cultural perspective to her leadership role. Her vision centers on integrating culturally based services that emphasize compassion and draw upon lived experiences, honoring her Kupana elders' values while addressing contemporary community needs. Avery will speak to her expertise on preserving and promoting Indigenous Hawaiian foods through Kahumana's Summer Meals program and how these lessons may be applied to honoring culturally relevant foods in your community. And I will hand it off to Avery.
Mahalo. Mahalo nui for that introduction. Can we please go to the next slide? Okay, so my name is Avery and I'm the executive director of Kahumana. Kahumana is a nonprofit organization that has been serving our community for over 50 years. We are on a mission to inspire and empower our community. And we're doing this through innovative housing solutions, home and based community services, and through agriculture enterprise. So each program here represents our commitment to creating meaningful and sustainable community solutions. Next slide, please. Okay, so Kahumana is located on the western end of the island of Oahu, and it's along the Waianae coast. So per the U.S. Census Bureau, Waianae consists of 61 square miles of land, has over 51,000 residents, and has 12 public charter schools in the area with a total enrollment of over 8,000 students. The average free and reduced meals of these schools are at 93.62%. Waianae is also the home of the highest concentration of Native Hawaiians in Hawaii. So if you take a look at that map, the orange area is where Kahumana has served as the rural non-congregate SFSP sponsor. Currently, right now, we partner with the Hawaii Food Bank, who is covering the other rural areas of the island. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little background about our program. The rural non-congregate SFSP in Hawaii is called kaukau for keiki. Kaukau is a slang word that we use for food or to eat, and keiki is the Native Hawaiian word for child. So a little bit about Kahumana. We have been a sponsor of Kaukau for Keiki for 4 years, and currently we operate one distribution site on our property. So our operating model is a curbside distribution, which is happening Monday through Friday, and we're distributing meal box kits, and they contain 14 meals. It'll be 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. So in 2025, during that 8-week summer period, we distributed over 252,000 meals to the Waianae coast. So I listed some of our challenges and our successes. For challenges, one of our challenges I listed is mainly based on the time it consumed for staff. So not picking up our full allotments. So we had many families that were registering multiple children. So we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. But when they entered our distribution line, Many of them were concerned on how long the line was and if the families in the back of the line would receive food. So our staff spent a lot of time reassuring the community that we had enough food for every child that had registered. It was a good problem. It definitely showed us what community care looked like. Our other challenge is our farmers need more time. Some of the items that were placed in our box are a year-long crop. Okay, for successes, Kahumana sees successes as feeding keiki nutritious foods, investing in Hawaii's economy, increasing local food production, but also utilizing our cultural knowledge to design a program that honors our responsibility to our keiki. And I don't mean just the contents in the box. Next page, please. Okay, so our first step was by utilizing our cultural knowledge, was to invest in community. So all hires for the Kauka for Keiki program are residents of Waianae, the community we serve. They are current or previous recipients of the boxes, or they are parents or grandparents of a recipient. We intentionally hired this way because that food impacted their lives. And we wanted to ensure that the staff was holding the organization accountable for how we were sourcing and how we were serving the community. So second was community volunteering. So the director of our Department for Food Access made space for high school students to come not only to farm, but to work alongside of our staff to learn how to support their community. So our partners and friends were in the space a lot as well. And a lot of families who were recipients of the boxes also had asked to volunteer. So the way we saw this was that we were not only investing in our youth because they were recipients of the boxes as well. We gave them meaningful opportunities to serve the community they live in. And they were also gaining employable work skills, so like quality control, washing, packing, inventory control, and distribution. So before we continue, can I ask you guys a question? If you guys could please put your answers into the chats. If we could move to the next slide, please. Could you guys tell us what foods represent your culture, your heritage, or your family traditions? So this was actually a step that we took to identify what culturally significant foods we wanted to utilize in our box. And so Kahumana decided to move forward with canoe crops. What are canoe crops? Next slide, please. So canoe crops, these are plants that were essential provisions for Native Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders that they used on their Polynesian voyages. And these canoe crops were not just food, they were used as clothing, shelter, and medicinally. So if you guys take a look at the slide, kalo translates to taro. Poi is a product made with kalo and water, and the consistency can vary, similar to mashed potatoes, depending on use and who you are feeding. Uala is sweet potato. Kahumana distributed the purple sweet potato. And ulu is breadfruit. So medicinal purposes of these crops. So uala was used to treat respiratory illnesses like asthma. Ulu was used to treat skin issues and manage blood sugar. Kalo was used to settle stomach issues as well as to fight infections. So together, those three plants represent thousands of years of intentional cultivation. So an ulu tree can grow and continue to thrive even after 100 years of age. And one single tree can produce hundreds, if not thousands, pounds of food annually. Kalo is a high yield crop. In an acre parcel, you can cultivate anywhere between 10,000 to 30,000 pounds annually of kalo. And uwala is known to be able to be grown in dry environments. So in the past, it could be used as famine food. So what we did learn from our cultural lens is that our kupuna, our elders, were not just creating a diet. They were actually building an infrastructure for food security. It was diverse enough to withstand disasters, also productive enough to feed an entire civilization. And it was so deeply rooted in land that the land regenerated in the process. So today, when we're investing in these crops, we're not simply growing food. We are reactivating the architecture of resilience that our kupuna, our elders, had created. Next slide, please. So why? Why did Kahumana put in culturally significant foods in our boxes? One reason is that these traditional foods are costly. Some families do not have access to them. Some can't afford them. Our second reason was to preserve our traditions for our future generations. When our keiki grow up without regular access to our traditional foods, we as a people lose out more than just our recipes. We lose the taste that connects them to their ancestors, their land, and their identity. Why did Kahumana put whole fruit? We put whole fruit and other produce. We did not process any of it. And the thing is, what we wanted to teach was how to recognize it and also how to process that item for their consumption. So the director of our food access department actually writes out a menu with clear instructions on how to break down that product so that the child can consume it. And what our hope is, when they're out and about and they see that papaya in that tree, they know how to feed themselves. So we're trying to increase their awareness and food access. Why did we put shelf-stable items in our box? Kahumana serves a large population of housing insecure Ohana families. We also provide services to multi-generational homes, and I'm talking like 3-4 generations in a home. We also serve vulnerable populations. So many of our participants may not have access to electricity or refrigeration, or if they do, they may not have room in it to be able to put the entire box in. So we decided to also incorporate shelf-stable items so that they had access to the food and that we weren't contributing to food waste. So our next step now was we figured out we're going to use canoe crops. How do we incorporate this into the required meal pattern? And in the same breath, how are we strengthening our culture connection in everyday meals? Next slide, please. So this is an excerpt from one of our menus years ago of when we started to incorporate poi and kalo. So if you take a look at the breakfast, it says milk, banana, and poi. So here in Hawaii, this is a common breakfast for infants and toddlers. So when we were trying to figure out how to connect and get these cultural items into our menu, we went back to basics. We went back to what our ancestors, our kupuna, taught us, and we brought that breakfast back. And we had a lot of families come through the line and state they can't remember the last time their child ate that. If you look at the lunch wraps, kalo can be utilized as either grain or vegetable. So we placed it also into everyday meals. So our whole thing was going back to basics. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the food that Kahumana distributed during the Kaukau for Keiki 2025 year. And when you look at this, we're looking at the pounds of food, 35,000 pounds of bananas, 69,000 pounds of papayas. And the number one question I am asked when people get to see this, they're asking, did Kahumana make a profit? So I'm very proud to say that in the 4 years that Kahumana has been a Kaukau for Keiki sponsor, we have not. It was never our intention to. Our intention was to make an impact and take every dollar and figure out how to stretch that dollar so that we could invest it in our community in multiple ways. So every resource that moved through our hands, we saw as an opportunity to feed a keiki, an opportunity to support a local farmer, an opportunity to create jobs in our community, and to keep that wealth circulating where it belonged, which was here at home. So for us as Kahumana, our return on investment looks like a child fed, a farmer who can sustain their farm for another year, and a community that feels seen and supported. This was the kind of abundance that we were building towards. So the last step for us for using cultural knowledge was to ask for feedback. We wanted to know how our community felt. Next slide, please. So we believe that accessing food should never come with shame. Every person who came to receive food through our distribution should be welcomed with dignity. We wanted to know what we did right. We also wanted to know what we needed to work on. And as an executive director, I wanted to see, are our values, our traditional values being shown? Did the community feel the aloha from us? Did the community feel respected by us? Did Kahumana hold space for them so they felt welcomed when they came to pick up at distribution? So on our poll survey, we're asking all these questions, but I'm going to read to you the last quote on the slide, which says, "Mahalo nui. Thank you very much for this amazing, life-changing experience for my entire Ohana family through something as basic as food." So we are not just nourishing our keiki with just meals. Simple foods can provide profound impact. So you saw the list of the foods that we were able to distribute and the pounds. How did Kahumana source all this food that we distributed? Next slide, please. So Kahumana utilized an inter-island network of food hubs, cooperatives, local vendors, and we purchased directly from farmers. So for those who don't know what a food hub is, food hubs connect local farmers with community markets and institutions. They also shorten the distance and the time between those who are growing food and those who are eating it. So this keeps the dollar circulating within our communities rather than flowing outwards outside of Hawaii. And in a place where over 85% of all foods consumed in Hawaii are imported through a very fragile food supply chain, many of us learned during the pandemic. So food hubs are acting with a collective intention to nourish our people, strengthen our farmers, and to help us rebuild our food systems that are rooted in community. So purchasing through these avenues gave Kahumana access to over 318 farms across Hawaii. But to let you guys know, the wonderful thing about Hawaii is Kahumana is not the only Kaukau for Keiki sponsor doing this work. Kahumana is part of a collective of Kaukau for Keiki sponsors that are wanting to feed their keiki healthy and nutritious meals while investing in community. So as a collective, we distributed over 1.3 million meals to Hawaii's keiki last summer, and we also generated $7.7 million of economic impact that flowed directly back into Hawaii's economy. And for those who want to learn more, a little bit more about food hubs, please check out that website of the Hawaii Food Hub Hui. Next slide, please. So we have so many people to thank. These are our partners and friends that helped to make our Kaukau for Keiki 2025 successful. But there are two organizations that Kahumana would like to send their aloha to. And the first is to the USDA Child Nutrition Program. Mahalo for this amazing and wonderful program. And to the Hawaii Child Nutrition Program, who administers this program in Hawaii. Please know that sponsors like Kahumana could not do this work without you guys. And you guys are not only giving us the ability to feed our keiki healthy, nutritious meals when they need it the most, but you're also providing us an opportunity to uplift our communities at the same time. So to quote that parent in the survey, through something as basic as food. So home here in Hawaii, we have wise sayings. We call them poetic expressions. Here, they are called olelo no'eo. And these words carry wisdom and observations of our kupuna, our elders, that have been passed down through the generations. They offer us guidance, connection, and also understanding of our place in the world. So I wanted to share one with you today. Next slide, please. A'ohe hana nui ke alu'ia. No task is too big when done together by all. So everyone that's on this webinar, we're all doing this work. And we know that this kind of work takes a village because sometimes this work can be heavy because nourishing the next generation comes with great responsibility. But please remember that shared responsibility that we all have becomes our shared strength. And what an absolute honor and privilege it is to nourish the next generation. So for everybody on this webinar, mahalo for being part of my village. Next slide, please. So if you would like to see our Kaukau for Keiki videos, learn more about our programs, please visit us at kahumana.org. And if you guys would like to learn more about the collective of Hawaii sponsors for Kaukau for Keiki and what we've been up to, please visit us at kaukauforkeiki.org. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you so much, Avery and Ali, for such wonderful presentations. Just the work you all do is so inspiring, and we're so lucky to get to hear your expertise today. So now we're going to transition into a little Q&A time. We've got a lot of great questions. Um, so I'll just answer this first one. We got a couple questions for Allie's Three Sisters taco salad recipe. Allie is generous enough to share that with us. So you can contact Allie directly by emailing her at summerlunch at thehdc.org. And Tiffany will go ahead and plug that email in the chat so you can contact Allie directly for that recipe. I'll move along to a question from Shanae for Avery. Avery, would you be able to explain your distribution model of 5 days a week? Do different families pick up different days?
Yes, they do. So, because each box contains the 14 meals, when families register, they're only showing up 1 day a week to pick up the box. And so, Monday through Friday, we're running distributions and we're distributing anywhere between 300 to 600 boxes. So, that's 300 to 600 keiki per day,
Awesome. Thanks for answering that.
of course.
I've got a question for Ali about local procurement. I think this is in reference to what you were speaking to about the climate in Montana. So the question was if you could share a little bit about the cool and practical ways Gallatin is procuring local foods.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that I've learned a ton from Avery and then the other panelists at the No Kid Hungry conference, which has really helped me and our staff change our procurement model. So something that we're doing at the food bank for the first time is forward contracting with local farmers, which is really awesome. We're stoked about it. We got approval from the fiscal department to do that. So that will not only bring in fresh produce to our food bank, but also our summer lunch program. And then we will be purchasing we have one local fruit and vegetable distributor here, Christina from Root Cellar Foods. And she's a wholesale distributor and then also straight to consumer as well. So we're going to be trying to procure specifically our breakfast fruit items from Christina. They will probably not be local because it's really hard to get local fruit in the summer in Montana. Local apples are available in the fall. But at least we'll be able to create some more economic development. I was really inspired by Avery's presentation this past summer. And then coupled with that too is we have a couple of grocery store chains here that are fully employee owned and local to the state of Montana. Town and Country Foods is one of them. So purchasing also large scale purchasing from Town and Country, fruit from Christina at Root Cellars, and then the forward contracting with local farms.
Awesome. Sounds like you've got a few strategies there. Appreciate those answers. I'll throw it back to Avery with a question about traditional Hawaiian food. So, are the children you're feeding already familiar with the traditional Hawaiian foods, or are these new tasting experiences for the kids?
Both. So a large population we serve, yes, are familiar with the foods, but some are not. And also, these items are not just Native Hawaiian. They can be seen actually across the Pacific Ocean, so even for the other Pacific Islanders as well.
Wonderful. I've got a few kind of rapid fire questions for Allie. The first one is, how are you defining processed food for your summer program? I think you spoke to minimizing processed foods and doing a lot of scratch cooking.
Yeah, so as much as possible, we try to make everything from scratch, in a realistic manner. But we're defining processing as highly processed foods. So we really do try to avoid those if and when possible. But we're not perfect at that. We add in Fritos, we have in Go-Gurts. One of our oh no moments is Uncrustables if we don't produce enough food for a day and we need to get more food out to sites because our bottom line is to make sure children are fed. But when possible, we do try to make things from scratch. So our lentil marinara sauce is 100% scratch with Montana lentils. Our hummus is made in-house. Um, our three bean taco salad is also made in-house. If we are buying items from Cisco, we're at least trying to buy whole food items and then we process it in our commercial kitchen and put it together as a meal. So that is just kind of how we go about the cooking procurement side.
Awesome. And Allie, what do you serve for breakfast? Is it also sent out with summer meal or with lunch meals?
Yes, so our breakfasts and lunches are served together. Our breakfasts consist of typically a yogurt, a fresh fruit, milk, and a grain item as well. Those are our more shelf-stable options, our breakfast options, and then our lunch is where we really lean into the scratch cooking.
And then one last question for Allie. Do you utilize the food sealer for summer meals?
We do not. Our food sealer does not have a HACCP plan, so has not been approved by our county health department yet. It's something that we're working on. So no, we do not do any food sealing. We cook our food about a day in advance before we distribute it. So we have a whole schedule on when we're cooking versus what we're distributing that day, and we use about 30 to 40 volunteers every single day for our summer lunch program to help us achieve that.
It's amazing. Well, thank you both. I think those are all of the questions we had in the Q&A. So I appreciate you both for taking the time to answer them and again, just providing your expertise. I'm going to pass it off to Kelly to close out the presentation with some additional resources we've got to offer you.
Great. Thank you so much. Kathleen, if you could move us to the next slide, please. So one of the things we wanted to take a moment to shout out before we all wrapped up here today is No Kid Hungry has a summer meal specific newsletter called Summertime Snack. This goes out just once a month. And it is a great resource for getting information about our upcoming summer meals webinars, new and updated resources, templates, tools, and more. So if you are not yet subscribed to Summertime Snack, or if you're not sure that you are, I'm going to drop a link here in the chat where you can go ahead and subscribe for that. Next slide, please. One of the things that is really important to us is hearing from you. Your feedback is very, very valued. And as part of that, when this webinar ends, right in your browser window, a survey is going to automatically open. It is a very brief survey that we would very much appreciate your feedback on. It helps us in our planning when we're planning for future webinars, when we're planning for resources, when we're planning for other things. It helps us to take the guesswork out of what we're doing and ensure that what we are spending our time creating is actually something that is going to be of interest and helpful to all of you. So please, I know all of us, I'm sure, are going to go on to something else right after this, but if you could take a couple of moments to fill that in for us, that would be very appreciated. Next slide, please. I'm going to shout out here a couple of resources as well as our resources in general. First thing that I want to mention is that our Summer Meals webinar series will continue next Wednesday, April 1st. And it's actually going to continue with another webinar that is going to be focused on menus. I just dropped here in the chat the link to that webinar. By registering for the webinar that we are on right now, you should already be registered for that. Hopefully, it's on your calendar. But we encourage you to come back, join us again, and also to tell others. Share this with your networks. We would love to have others join us. And then also here are a couple of related resources that we have to today's topic. We have a multi-day menu planning resource as well as a resource about offering bulk meals. I again am dropping some links here in the chat, so if you're eager and ready to take a look at those, you can go ahead and access them now, but they will also be included in the follow-up email that you will get. So going full circle to where we started, by being here with us today, you are going to get a follow-up email that includes the webinar slide deck and the recording. And next slide, please. This is our last slide. Just wanted to say a tremendous thank you to Avery and Allie for joining us today as speakers. Just extending so much gratitude to the two of you for sharing your insight and your experience and your expertise with all of us today. But really, first and foremost, for your commitment to nourishing kids, both in your own communities and sharing with all of us here to ensure that kids in other communities are nourished in the summer months as well. So a tremendous thank you to the two of you, and thank you for all of us, to all of you for joining us here today. Wishing you well as you go on through the rest of your day, and wishing you all well as you prepare for the upcoming summer meal service season. Thank you.